Hi, I'm Merrick Demand, and welcome back to Let's Play Dracula 3 Path of the Dragon, and happy Halloween. Let's continue talking to this person. Not even going to attempt her name.
So then Stoker was inspired by a story told him by Professor von Bergen, the story of events that had taken place in Transylvania. Perhaps in Budapest?
It's probable.
Did you know that Professor van Bergen knew Bram Stoker?
Yes, but I ignored all the details that are recounted in this letter. I only knew that Stoker had cited Herman among the sources inspiring him, and Herman was not flattered.
Had the professor foreseen the novel's success?
In no way.
Hmm.
One day he told me, speaking of Stoker, that irresponsible man didn't understand half of what I told him. He's peddling errors that could cost people their lives. Fortunately, his book will be quickly forgotten.
Not exactly. What is the source of the belief in vampires?
The first trace we have stems from ancient Babylon. The creation poem contains sinister allusions to Lilith, the unappeasable, who sucks the blood of newborns. Several centuries later, the Odyssey evokes dead people who crowd together to drink at a blood-filled ditch. But it's in Europe, beginning in the 14th century, that veritable epidemics of vampirism are described. They would continue until the 18th century, a period which left us much written testimony.
For example?
The famous Visum and Repertum report, written in 1732 by a retired Austrian military doctor. In it, we learn in abundant detail how Serbian peasants open a vampire's grave and execute him by driving a stake through his heart.
What an energetic method.
It's very widespread. In Russia, they use an aspen stake. In other places, it's made of hawthorn, from which Christ's crown of thorns was woven.
Belief in vampires must lead to the desecration of graves. Belief in vampires must lead to much desecration of graves?
It has to. Reports describe hundreds of grave openings. The vampire's cadaver is identifiable because it's perfectly conserved. It often appears swollen by the blood it has absorbed. The blood stains its clothes, its nails, or its mouth. It's sometimes so abundant that it overflows the coffin.
Wow. You speak of vampires as if they existed. Reassure me, you don't really believe in them, do you?
What do you mean by believe, Father?
I mean, do you think that vampires have a real, objective existence?
Real or objective? You must choose, Father. Because the only immediate reality is subjective. The rest are just hypotheses.
All right, your viewpoint is unassailable. So let me reformulate my question. According to you, has the existence of vampires been demonstrated?
Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, "If ever there was in the world a warranted and proven history, it is that of vampires. Nothing is lacking. Official reports, affidavits of well-known people, of surgeons, of priests, of magistrates. The evidence is most complete."
Really?
Yet all these stories and affidavits seem very confused to me. I sense nothing coherent behind it all. Didn't you say yourself that the traditions don't agree?
Don't take the legends literally. I think they are the deformed reflection of a truth that is even more horrible. This book, The Lords of Twilight, is the most rigorous volume ever written on vampires. Open it.
Which book is that? Is it this book? Lords of Twilight or the Fulfillment of the Race? To Professor Herman von Bergen, hoping that in spite of our differences of opinion, he will appreciate the study which owes a lot to his immense knowledge. Herman von Kruger, I'm assuming. Forward. Those for whom this work is intended know enough about it that is not necessary either to demonstrate the obvious facts or to quote the details of my references. I will therefore limit myself to summarizing the facts. Those whom we agree to call the superior strangers, or the lords, originate from the human race, live among it, and feed upon it. We know that they do not grow old, and that they are almost invulnerable. The almost is important. If the lords can be destroyed, then they must compensate losses due to violent deaths. One way or another, they must reproduce. Reproduction and selection. In numerous species, the reproduction is independent of sexuality, and it is the case with the lords. We can hypothesize, at least in the first step, that their reproduction is the result of a calculation, if as it is probable they help each other in maintaining the lesser men in ignorance and servitude, they must renew their own numbers so as to not become weak. However, the reproduction of a virtually immortal species must be strictly limited, or the food, the human cattle, will soon become insufficient. Thus it is impossible to accept that immortality could be transmitted through a simple bite or a contagious disease. Such a belief is constantly refuted by the facts. The manner in which the lords complete their ranks is entirely different. It is a process of selection and co-optation that sources after the 15th century refer to as the Path of the Dragon. This is the title again. This initiatory journey offers to the human being who undertakes it the chance to transcend his condition in order to join the lords. Marked by trials along the way, it finally brings a candidate into the presence of one of them. If it is the latter's pleasure, the human receives the baptism of blood, which confers immortality, that which a Christian author referred to as the power to live beyond the grace of God. The Path of the Dragon. The trials of the path are at the crossing points of the real, the symbolic, and the magical. They are tremendously selective, and it happens that exceptional beings overcome one or two of them without realizing fully the journey they are undertaking. Completing it requires a total commitment, an unfailing will, as well as an intangible factor that we may call demonic grace, because no one can become lord without the favor of no one can become lord without the favor and the approval of a lord. The path received its name in honor of the most remarkable lord in history, Vlad Tepes Dracula, the dragon. Therefore, it is therefore certain that the prince traveled the path, and it is highly probable that others later followed it up to him. Vlad, however, was not the first one. The path existed before him, and he received his baptism from an elder lord. Documents prove, in fact, that the path has been codified since the dawn of history. The cryptograms that structure were copied numerous times. The manner in which they merge with that sacred art of their times demonstrates that, among the crowd of naive copyists, a handful of initiates were at work, as desirous of ensuring the eternity of their knowledge as to reserve access to it to an elite. But if there is an uninterrupted chain of lords up to Vlad Tepes, which of them is the first link? Texts as old as writing suggest the name of Lilith, the killer of babies, looking like a serpent, the demon of twilight, who had been a human being but who had escaped this condition by rebelling against God. Lilith's actual existence is a hypothesis to be considered. She would be then the acting incarnation of the thirst for power that constitutes the transcendent part of human heritage. This feature, pushed to the extreme, characterizes the race of the lords, born in the midst of humankind in a way entirely comparable to the phenomenon of the separation of the species described by Darwin and his disciples. Thus, man must engender Übermensch, the Superman, not only from a metaphorical point of view and symbolic one, as the philosopher understood it, but also the very concrete level of biology and the balance of powers. The
Lords of Twilight is the work of an insane person. It's sheer madness.
Father, the war that has just ended shows that the whole world can go mad. In less than 30 years, evil will seize power and the earth will once more catch fire.
No, not so quickly, not so soon. After the carnage we went through, the world will take the time to let its wounds heal.
I don't think
You'll
World
see.
War II, you see.
The author of the book, the Thule Society that publishes it, all of them are criminals who won't hesitate trampling on corpses to gain power and eternal life. The war will come because of them and their like.
Okay. According to the author of The Lords, the Path of the Dragon leads to Vlad Tepes.
That's very possible. Vlad was a cruel ruler, intelligent and determined. He could very well have made a deal with the devil and conquered immortality.
So he would have lived several centuries?
To be sure.
But where would he be hiding?
In Vladiviste? Why not? Or elsewhere. The fox might have changed his den. The only way to tell would be to follow the path until its end.
Tell me about the Thule Society.
It's a group founded by Heinrich von Kreutzberg on the ruins of the Golden Dawn.
Different
Another
character.
secret society. Thule reached out to Professor von Bergen many times, but he couldn't bear them. He always kept his distance, and I followed his example.
Did they approach you?
Many times. Openly, not in any roundabout way. Oh, they're very clever, very influential. I would never compromise myself with them.
I thought it's exactly the same initials as Heinrich von Kruger. I thought it might have been him who wrote it, or at least sent it. How can you be so sure that a new world war is going to erupt?
Do you know the hidden apocalypse of Thomas the Greater?
Yes. There are those who say it is a prophetic work.
Here it is. Open the book, and you will read some astonishing things.
Good. More. All right.
This page reveals the origin of the Great War.
Really?
The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand at Sarajevo. The event that would submerge the world in horror had been announced centuries before in this book.
Really?
It's just a jumble of
page,
numbers,
you say?
letters.
Forget the
It's
direction
Crossword.
you ordinarily read in. Try to compose words vertically or diagonally. See?
Casus belli. The cause of the war.
Exactly. The prophecy contains two other terms that cross the first one. Look for them, and you will find the date and place of the assassination.
Looking for hidden apocalypse, I guess. I don't want to do this. What's the answer here? Because I really have no interest in this puzzle. Dracula 3. So there are some things, and this nonsense is an example of it, where I don't care enough to actually try, and this is something I don't care enough to actually attempt. It's like the stupid blood tests. Okay, so we got one from going down from from S to,
Here's the place.
and we have
Here's the
all
date.
right.
Everything's there. In 1914, in Sarajevo, the incident that caused the war occurred. It can't be a coincidence.
It's very
It is a
odd, I
coincidence.
grant you that.
It's a word jumble.
That's the past. Now let's discover the future. You see, on this page, the Thule Society is clearly designated. Its name is associated with Kaiadis, which means massacre. To know more, look for connected terms.
Do I have to? Okay. This puzzle seems a waste of time just within the story.
So now everything is clear.
Is it?
At the instigation of the Thule Society, evil will triumph in Germany in 1936. And there will be massacres.
Yes.
So this prophecy is at the root of your mistrust of the Thule Society.
It's just one element among many others. Believe me, those people have no notion of compassion.
What do you think of the famous What do you think the famous Path of the Dragon consists of?
I see it as a way to force destiny, to attain, thanks to the Force, spheres forbidden to man.
How could that be possible?
Father, you are well placed to know that sacraments of good exist. You must accept that there are also sacraments of evil, handed down from time immemorial.
If they do exist, these sacraments can only be dangerous illusions.
They do exist. 7 of them. 7 stages of the same route. 7 trials to change a man into a bloodthirsty monster who pretends to deal with God as an equal. The keys to the Path of the Dragon are hidden in ancient documents. Take this occult work. It contains an illustration that I would ask you to examine carefully.
I know that
This
painting.
one again.
I saw it very recently. It's Raphael's crucifixion scene. Although, no, it's not precisely the same work.
Excellent memory. It is indeed a copy. We shall point out the differences with the original one by one.
Okay. Okay, just tell me what the required...
I know that painting.
Yes,
I saw it.
Excellent.
I know. What's the right one with all the nonsense?
In the original painting, the angel on the left holds 2 chalices.
To be sure. I remember that very well. In your copy, the angel on the left is only holding 1 chalice.
Absolutely. That's the most flagrant difference. There's another one, but you'll need a magnifying glass to see it. Focus your magnifying glass on the base of the cross.
An inscription, but it's in ancient Enochian. Do not let your blood flow in vain. Strange locution. What meaning do you ascribe to all this?
Herman had an idea on the subject.
Salter's copy of Raphael's Crucifixion illustrates a book on the occult from Van Bergen collection. Determination of the differences. Okay, what else am I looking for? Okay, is that it?
These variations between the 2 versions of the crucifixion are troubling.
Are they really?
You say that Professor Van Bergen was able to interpret them?
Herman was convinced that the variations in the documents revealed the secrets of the path. Imagine yourself as a copyist, seeking to transmit a message to initiates. 2 methods are possible. Either you add an element to the original, or more subtly, you remove one.
The chalice?
Yes, it's absent from the copy, and I think it's a way to draw attention to it. The devil leaves his signature in its absence, Herman said.
Then the chalice is important.
An object is associated with each stage of the path. I'd venture a guess that the chalice is one of them. There are 6 others to discover.
Oh, this is getting Da
What
Vinci
happens at the end
codes.
of the route?
The initiate must accomplish one last rite. He won't be able to unless he's understood all he's achieved before. That is, if he knows the order of the trials, as well as the objects and symbols related to each of them.
Why use the crucifixion, a sacred work, to blasphemous ends?
If you want to transmit forbidden knowledge, it's an advantage to plagiarize sacred art. Your copy will be piously conserved by simple folk who don't even suspect what you've hidden there. And your message will go through the centuries, understood only by those to whom it is addressed. Your spiritual brothers, the initiates.
They say your library is remarkably rich.
That's true, but it's very hard to find one's way in it. Herman had a very particular way of storing his books. Let's say he classified them more poetically than functionally. Without this catalog associating each book with its call number, I'd be lost in my own library. Every time I take a volume from the shelf, I write its call number on a bookmark I slip between the pages. That way I can put it back in place without losing too much time. For the same reason, I use ghosts.
Use ghosts?
Yes, there are ghosts in my library. That's what we call the pieces of white cardboard that signify the place of a missing work on the shelf.
Oh, okay.
Professor, I don't want to take up too much of your time. This visit was most interesting, even if, I must admit, your opinions hardly go in the sense my hierarchy expected.
It's regrettable that the Catholic Church is so rigid. But even if the existence of vampires may be doubted, the existence of the Thule Society is unquestionable. Beware of it, Father. I'll gather some documents that will show you all of the malevolence of this organization. Where can I send them to you?
Please
At the
don't
Vado
send
Vista
me
Inn, if
your
you'd be so kind.
conspiracy
Thank you for
theory
receiving me
nonsense.
so graciously, Professor.
I wish you a safe journey back to Transylvania, Father. God keep you.
Thank you.
What an astonishing conversation. It's as if this woman lived in another world.
White.
I'll have to test some of these arguments on Professor Kruger. I'm curious to know his opinion.
Okay, that was a... So we went to Budapest, all the way to Budapest, and went to one office. Back on the train. It was a waste of a trip to Budapest just to see one office. It's Budapest, come on. Back in Budapest. You know anything else?
Luana.
You are an outsider like me.
Okay, yeah, you're still a waste of pixels.
I've got to see Janos and Stefan. They'll surely be curious to know how my conversation with Professor Boxoff went. But first, let's stop at the inn to see if I've received any mail.
Isn't Stephen at the inn?
That's the outbox for the mail.
Where's the inbox?
Stefan Luca is in the parlor. Let's go greet him.
I know.
Hello, Father Arno. What news?
Oh, you.
I've just come from Budapest. I saw Professor Boxoff, and I have to confess that she shares some of your ideas.
You see? Are you ready to help me at last? When do we leave for Turkey?
I don't think that my superiors would appreciate that initiative. However, I promise that I'll think about it.
Very well. I think I'll have to venture onto the path of the dragon alone.
Alright, cool. Do you know Professor von Kruger?
He used to correspond regularly with Martha before the war. He didn't believe in vampires. According to him...
Okay, I think we've already had that dialogue. Let's check our mail. We'd have to knock... Oh, it's not my room. This is my room? You should probably number your hotel doors if you don't want people going into the wrong room.
A package from the Vatican. It must be Vlad Tepes's biography that Monsignor Briganti sent me.
Let's have a look. A prisoner of the Turks, Vlad Tepes regained his freedom and rose to the throne the same year he ordered the execution of the voivode Vladislav, who had been the ruler of the land before him. History of Vlad Voivode Dracula. Moreover, he had people of all walks of life, young and old, men and women, impaled on a stake, and they agitated their legs and arms, convulsed like frogs. In addition, he poisoned the water sources throughout the country. He had men, women, and children brought in and impaled, and they numbered 200. Also, he invited the poor of the land to partake in a big feast. When they had finished eating, he had them all burnt inside a church. Don't think that actually happened, but whatever. Also, he had a monk and the donkey on which he was riding seized, and then both impaled. He had men buried up to their waist and riddled with arrows. Others were roasted, and others skinned alive. Turkish ambassadors greeted him without taking off their headgear, saying, This is our custom." "Very well," he answered, "I will reinforce your custom." And they thanked him, but he had them seized and had their headgear hammered under their head with large iron nails. This is how he reinforced their custom. Twaddle. 1903. Oh, more information. Okay, we've already read this a while ago. Is there anything new here? Doesn't seem to be anything new here. Let's go see Janos. Let's talk to Kruger, then see Janos.
Number, please.
Talk to Kruger. Then we should probably call the Vatican again.
This is Professor Heinrich von Kruger.
This is Father Arno Moriani.
Strange. Sometimes I have the feeling that noises and odors are accentuated.
That hypersensitivity might be due to fatigue or to nervous tension. Let's see. You don't have any allergies, do you?
No, not at all.
Good. Well, I don't think there's anything to worry about, but call me if you notice any allergic reactions.
Professor Boskov spoke to me of waves of vampirism observed between the 14th and 18th centuries. How would you explain them?
Yeah, I noticed they coincided with epidemics of the plague. Masses of people died, they were buried quickly, and sometimes when they were still alive. They tore at themselves while trying to escape their coffins. If they were disinterred, their bodies were found bloodied. In short, they made perfect vampires.
Good explanation.
Cases of premature burial like that aren't uncommon, you know. Even today, a colleague told me of a pregnant woman who gave birth in her coffin. The poor lady died of suffocation with her child.
That's unfortunate. What have you got to say about those bodies that are found fresh and rosy-cheeked months after burial?
Decomposition is not a very systematic phenomenon. If the laws of nature permit 1 out of 100 bodies to deteriorate more slowly than others, take the time to open every grave in the cemetery, and you'll always find one pseudo-vampire. Anyway, why associate the absence of decomposition with vampirism? The phenomenon has been observed with many holy figures. For example, Francis Xavier and Teresa of Avila, to cite just two. Explore the archives of your congregation, and you'll find dozens of cases.
According to Professor Boskov, suspect corpses are often bloated, others continuously sweating blood.
Decomposition produces gases that can give the cadaver a swollen aspect. The liquid that oozes from corpses is an odd phenomenon. But did you know that the venerable Lebanese monk Charbel Maklouf has sweat liters of blood since his death? Does that mean this holy man is a vampire?
Have you heard of the Path of the Dragon?
What a pompous name. What does it refer to?
An initiatory journey having to do with vampirism. Professor Irina Boksov takes it very seriously.
Himmel, esotericism, secret societies, initiatory journeys. What an old-fashioned hodgepodge. But even the greatest minds sometimes go astray.
Professor Boskov spoke to me of the secret Thule Society.
Himmel, esotericism, secret societies, initiatory journeys. What an old-fashioned hodgepodge.
Professor Irina Boskov revealed certain very odd prophecies to me.
Prophecies. What exactly did the professor say?
Great
A lot of
evil
nonsense.
will come forth in Germany
Well,
in
that
some
happens, but
15
her
years.
evidence was nonsense.
There will be massacres and a new world war.
And what is the source of these prophecies?
The
Crossword.
hidden apocalypse of Thomas the Greater.
Yeah, the Kabbalistic version.
Do you know it?
Of course. I also amused myself when I was a student with associations of letters. By the virtue of the law of numbers, once in a while, you obviously have to find a combination that makes sense.
You think that all of this is just coincidence?
Yeah, and that book can be made to say just about anything. Wait a minute. I'll go get my copy. Good. Let's open it at random to page 3, for example, and look for significant words. You'll see that, with a little bit of luck, we're going to discover some wonders. Hey, look. It didn't
Okay,
take
he has
me
to do
long
it.
to find something. I see other words, but I'll leave you the pleasure of the hunt.
What pleasure. This is terrible. Okay, there's also MCMXLV and this down to I. No, did this I maybe? Okay, you're not being funny.
Good fishing, huh?
No, it was awful.
But that's as it should be. When you look for just any old thing, you'll find it easily. Now, let's look at the interpretation.
Do we have to?
Rising Sun, 1945. Fire from the Sky. I've got a wealth of choices.
The bombing of...
For example, I can posit that 1945 will be the dawn of a new empire, and that its advent will be accompanied by lightning bolts zigzagging through the sky. Or, also, that in 1945, heaven's fire will fall upon the empire of the rising sun, or any old ingenious absurdity that I can dream up. All right, this game is amusing but sterile.
Agreed.
Let's focus our attention on other matters.
You seem to be comfortable with the calculation of probability. Could you give me your opinion on some rather special gambling games?
If I can shed any light on them for you.
Here it is. In Budapest, I met a gypsy who played both cards and dice.
Can you describe the games to me?
Describe gypsy card game.
Methodically list every case, and you'll see that the best strategy is to bet on the visible color. That choice gives you 2 out of 3 chances to win. Your gypsy doesn't cheat, but she knows the probability, and that's how she wins against those who don't know it.
And dice game.
This game is a probabilistic version of the classic rock, scissors, paper. It's clear that the white die has 4 chances out of 6 to beat the yellow one. We could even show that, in general, yellow beats black and black beats white. To improve your chances, let your gypsy choose first, then take the die that beats hers.
Goodbye, Professor.
Goodbye, Father.
Okay. What do we have to... I think we have to go to back up to our room now.
It's not polite to burn.
Oh, sorry. think we're actually supposed to go see Janos now. Quickly nip up and talk to him, then we're probably going to call it a video. Long walk up. Oh, he's doing something for once.
Hello, Father Arno. Are you back from
Finally
Budapest?
finished his cigarette, too.
Yes, I spoke at length with Professor Boxoff. She takes testimony about vampirism very seriously.
Age makes many academics lose touch with reality. But tell me, did she show you the manuscript about Vlad Tepes?
It wasn't necessary. I was able to procure a printed edition, which is more than enough for my needs.
Professor Boxov apprised me of the existence of the Thule Society, a cult that seeks immortality.
You know I'm not very interested in esotericism.
Neither am I. What do you think of all the acts of cruelty that are ascribed to Vlad Tepes?
Vlad was reproached for everything, even for having abjured orthodoxy to convert to Catholicism. But his life is only known through the writings of his enemies. You have to read between the lines. Among other things, it's said that one Easter he treacherously seized all the noblemen in his country. They add that he made them labor naked on the enlargement of his castle till they died of exhaustion. But they omit to point out that these noblemen had betrayed all the previous kings. They were leading the country to its ruin through constant plotting. By eliminating them, Vlad was acting for the best.
That's one view of things. All right, the time has come to call Monsignor Briganti to tell him my investigation is nearing its end. I hope he's in his office.
And we'll be doing that next time as soon as you get... once you walk back down the hill, we're probably going to be done for the day. The word jumble thing has gotten a little too irritating for my taste. So, I'm going to leave on this image. I've been Merrick D'Amato, and happy Halloween. Hi, thanks for watching. This has been played and recorded by me, Merrick D'Amato. The art was by Rafael Agrona. You can find a link to their commission page in the description below. And if you like this video and want to see more like it, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you all next time. Ciao!